The emergency lights flashed red across the grand chamber as delegates from 47 different alien species rushed to their seats. Ambassador Kelthros tried to calm everyone down, but his voice barely carried over the noise and chaos. The tall insect-like Chancellor Mevro stood at the center podium and activated the holographic display with one of his many arms. His compound eyes reflected the blue light from the screen as he waited for silence. When the chamber finally quieted down, he spoke in a grave tone that made everyone lean forward in their seats. 3 days ago, their monitoring stations had picked up an unauthorized jump signature in the Forbidden Sector. The signature belonged to a human vessel. A wave of shocked gasps and angry hisses filled the room. Some delegates stood up from their seats while others made distressed sounds in their native languages. The Forbidden Sector had been off limits for 200 years, ever since the Treaty of Corvallis was signed by every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. No one was supposed to go there. No one was supposed to even get close to the barrier that marked the edge of charted space. What lay beyond that barrier was considered too dangerous and too unknown for anyone to explore. Ambassador Silthra of the Reptilian Sovereignty rose from her seat, and her scales changed color to show her anger. She could not believe that the humans would break such an important treaty. The humans had only been part of the galactic community for 300 years. They were still considered newcomers by most of the older species. Many had doubted whether humanity truly understood the weight of galactic law and the consequences of breaking it. Kelthros stood up and addressed the chamber with concern in his voice. He wondered aloud whether the humans really comprehended what they had risked by crossing into the Forbidden Sector. Perhaps their youth as a spacefaring species meant they did not fully grasp the danger. Perhaps they thought the treaty was just another political agreement that could be bent or ignored. But the treaty was different. It was written in the blood of species that had ventured too far and never returned. Chancellor Mevros brought up more information on the holographic display. The vessel was called the Horizon Dawn, and it was commanded by Captain Jacob Green. The ship had crossed the barrier at the 7th mark of the Corvallis line, and had not responded to any communication attempts since entering the Forbidden Zone. 73 human crew members were on board that ship. 73 lives that were now considered lost by most of the delegates in the chamber. Vornus of the Luminar Collective stood up, and his crystalline body pulsed with an orange glow that indicated worry and fear. He stated firmly that the humans were already dead, and that the Council should seal the sector immediately and forget this incident ever happened. The treaty existed for a good reason. The ruins of the predecessor civilization served as proof of what happened to those who reached too far into the unknown. The predecessors had been the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. They had technology that made current galactic science look primitive, yet something had destroyed them completely. Only their empty cities and silent stations remained as warnings to those who came after. Ambassador Talara of the Feline Dominion disagreed strongly. Her tail lashed back and forth as she argued that the Council could not simply ignore this breach. If the humans had awakened something beyond the barrier, then every species in the galaxy faced potential extinction. The predecessors had not destroyed themselves for no reason. Something terrible had happened to them. Something that might still be waiting in the dark spaces beyond the barrier. The chamber erupted into chaos once more. Some species called for immediate economic sanctions against Earth. Others demanded that the human homeworld be blockaded until they handed over everyone responsible for authorizing the mission. A few delegates suggested abandoning the outer colonies entirely and moving all populations back to the core worlds where they might be safer. Fear spread through the room like wildfire. Old species that had seen thousands of years of history were terrified. Young species that had barely explored their own solar systems before joining the galactic community were confused and angry. No one in that chamber knew the truth. No one realized that at that exact moment Captain Jacob Green and his crew of 73 humans were very much alive. They were not dying in the cold vacuum of space. They were not being torn apart by some ancient horror from beyond the stars. Instead, they were standing on the bridge of their ship staring at something that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the universe. The view screen showed a massive structure floating in the darkness. It was a space station, larger than anything the modern galaxy had ever constructed. The station was intact and still generating power after sitting abandoned for thousands upon thousands of years. Lights glowed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Energy fields shimmered around docking bays that could hold ships 10 times the size of the Horizon Dawn. This was not a ruin. This was not a tomb. This was something that had been waiting. Captain Green stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he studied every detail of the station. His crew worked quietly at their consoles, running scans and analyzing data. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Patterson focused on her translation program, trying to decode the strange symbols that covered the station's hull. The language was unlike anything in their extensive databases. It was beautiful in its complexity, yet also somehow simple and direct. She estimated it would take hours to process everything, but already patterns were emerging. Dr. Henry Cole could barely contain his excitement. The elderly scientist had spent his entire career studying the predecessors. He had explored their ruins on a dozen different worlds. He had analyzed their artifacts and tried to understand their culture. Now he was looking at an intact predecessor station. His hands shook as he recorded every sensor reading. This discovery would rewrite everything humanity knew about galactic history. Commander Patricia Walsh approached Captain Green from the tactical station. She had completed a full scan of the station's defensive systems. They were dormant but still functional after all these millennia. Whatever the predecessors had wanted to protect here, they had made sure it would survive. The station had enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Yet it was not attacking them. It was simply waiting as if it had been expecting someone to arrive eventually. Green asked if they had been detected by the station's systems. Walsh confirmed they had not triggered any defensive responses. The station seemed to be in a passive monitoring mode. It was watching them but not acting against them. Green asked the obvious question. If the station was waiting, then what exactly was it waiting for? Before anyone could offer an answer, the translation algorithm signaled completion. Lisa's fingers moved rapidly across her controls as she pulled up the results. Her face went pale as she read the translated text. She called for the captain to come see what she had found. Green crossed the bridge and looked at her screen. The message had been broadcasting continuously for thousands of years in the ancient predecessor language. Now it was translated into English. The words were addressed to no one specific, yet seemed meant for everyone who might ever venture beyond the barrier. Green read the message once, then read it again to make sure he understood correctly. When he finally looked up at his crew, his expression was grim. The message explained that whoever found this station was not ready for what it contained, but time was running short. An enemy returned in cycles, and the next cycle was approaching. The predecessors had left to face this enemy in the deep dark spaces where galaxies ended. Some of them might still be alive out there fighting an endless war. The station contained their knowledge and their weapons and their hope for the future. But using what the station offered would draw the attention of the enemy. The species that found this place would need to grow stronger first. They would need to unite all their people under one cause. If they remained divided, they would fall just as the predecessors had nearly fallen. The message warned them to guard this place and prepare themselves. They should trust no comfort and trust no peace that lasted too long. The enemy was patient and the enemy was coming back. Silence filled the bridge as every crew member absorbed what they had just read. Commander Walsh was the first to speak. She said the message was talking about an external threat. Something from outside their galaxy had attacked the predecessors. Lieutenant Lisa added that according to the message, this threat was coming back. The cycles mentioned in the warning suggested this enemy appeared at regular intervals across vast spans of time. Captain Green made his decision quickly. He ordered Dr. Cole to prepare a complete data package of everything they had discovered. They were taking all this information back to Earth. Humanity needed to know the truth. The entire galaxy needed to know what was really out there waiting for them. This changed everything. The Treaty of Corvallis had been based on a lie, or at least on incomplete information. The Council had hidden the real reason for the Forbidden Sector. Commander Walsh pointed out that bringing this information back meant admitting they had broken the treaty. The Galactic Council would demand severe punishment. Some species might even call for military action against Earth. Green acknowledged this, but stated firmly that he did not care about the political consequences. If they did not warn everyone about the coming threat, then having a career, or even having freedom, would not matter. The enemy described in the predecessor message sounded like something that could end all life in the galaxy. That was more important than any treaty or any law. Dr. Cole began downloading every piece of data the station was willing to share. The amount of information was staggering. Weapons technology that could tear holes in space-time, shield generators that bent gravity itself, power systems that harvested energy from dimensions humans did not even know existed, medical knowledge that could extend lifespans by centuries. The predecessors had been so far advanced that comparing them to modern species was like comparing a starship to a wooden boat. Lisa worked on copying the linguistic database. Understanding the predecessor language completely would take years, but having the full dictionary and grammar rules would help. She also found historical records. The predecessors had documented their war against the enemy in careful detail. She skimmed through some of the files, and what she read made her blood run cold. The enemy had destroyed entire star systems. They consumed everything in their path. Planets were stripped of all life. Stars were drained of their energy. Whole civilizations vanished in days. The predecessors called them the Devourers. They came from somewhere outside normal space. The predecessors had fought them for thousands of years across multiple galaxies. Eventually, the predecessors realized they could not win by defending their territory. So they did something desperate. They gathered their greatest fleet and left their galaxy behind. They led the Devourers away on purpose. They sacrificed their entire civilization to buy time for whatever species might evolve after they were gone. Captain Green read these records over Lisa's shoulder. He asked how long they had. How much time before the Devourers returned? Dr. Cole pulled up the calculations that the predecessors had left behind. Based on their observations, the enemy operated on a cycle of approximately 50,000 years. The last time the Devourers had been in this galaxy was 52,000 years ago. According to the predecessor projections, the next cycle would begin sometime in the next century. Maybe less. The timeline was not exact because the Devourers did not move through normal space in predictable ways. Walsh asked if the station had weapons they could use right now. Could they arm the Horizon Dawn with predecessor technology and be ready to fight? Dr. Cole shook his head. The technology was too advanced. It would take years just to understand how the weapons worked, decades to figure out how to manufacture them. The predecessors knew this would be a problem, so they had left detailed instructions. Step-by-step guides for less advanced species. But even with instructions, building these weapons would require resources that no single species possessed. Green understood what that meant. Humanity could not face this threat alone. Earth did not have the industrial capacity or the scientific knowledge to build predecessor weapons in time. Neither did any other single species. The only way to prepare for the Devourers was for the entire galaxy to work together. Every species would need to contribute resources and knowledge and labor. They would need to set aside old rivalries and political disputes. They would need to become something they had never been before. United. He gave orders to begin the journey back to Earth. They would travel at maximum safe speed. Every day counted now. While the ship prepared to depart, Green recorded a message for Earth Command. He explained everything they had found. He took full responsibility for breaking the treaty. He made it clear that his crew had only followed his orders. If there were consequences, he alone should face them. But more importantly, he urged Earth to share this information with the entire galaxy immediately. Secrecy would only help the enemy. The Horizon Dawn powered up its jump drive and began moving away from the predecessor station. As they prepared to leave, the station's lights pulsed in what almost seemed like a farewell. Dr. Cole wondered aloud if there was still some intelligence inside the station. Perhaps an artificial mind left behind to guard the place. Perhaps the last remnant of the predecessors themselves. They would never know. At least not yet. There would be time to explore the station properly later if they survived what was coming. The jump back to human space took 3 days. During that time, the crew worked constantly preparing their data for transmission. They organized everything into clear categories: military technology, scientific discoveries, historical records, medical advances. Everything was labeled and cross-referenced. They wanted to make it as easy as possible for other species to access and understand the information. Lisa spent hours refining the translation of the original warning message. She wanted to make sure every word was accurate. The message would be the first thing the galaxy heard. It needed to be perfect. It needed to convey the full weight of what the predecessors were trying to tell them. When they finally emerged from their last jump near Earth's outer colonies, they immediately broadcast everything they had found. The transmission went out on all channels: military frequencies, civilian networks, diplomatic channels. Within minutes, every human in the solar system knew what the Horizon Dawn had discovered. Within hours, the message reached human colonies dozens of light-years away, and within a day, every major government in the galaxy had intercepted and translated the broadcast. The Galactic Council reconvened in an atmosphere of barely controlled chaos. Representatives who had been calling for human punishment now found themselves facing information they could not ignore. The data from the Horizon Dawn included video footage of the predecessor station. It included translated documents that were clearly authentic. Most damning of all, it included evidence that the Council's own deep space monitoring stations had detected similar signals years ago and buried the reports. Admiral Helen Carter stood before the Council in her dress uniform. She had volunteered to represent Earth at this emergency session, knowing full well she might never see home again. Behind her, holographic displays showed the predecessor warning message in dozens of languages. She had prepared her testimony carefully. She knew she had one chance to change the course of history. Chancellor Mevros demanded to know how Earth dared to appear before the Council after violating the most sacred treaty in galactic law. His voice boomed through the translation system. Several other delegates voiced their agreement. The humans had broken the rules. They had endangered everyone by venturing into forbidden space. They needed to be punished as an example to others. Admiral Carter waited for the angry voices to fade before responding. She spoke calmly and clearly. She stated that what Captain Green discovered made the treaty irrelevant. The Forbidden Sector had never been about protecting species from their own ambitions. It had been established because the Council found evidence of the predecessor's fate and decided to bury it. She let that accusation hang in the air. Ambassador Kelthros shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He asked what proof Carter had for such a serious claim. Carter activated another display showing surveillance logs from Council monitoring stations. The logs dated back over a century. They showed repeated detection of the predecessor signal. They showed reports recommending investigation. And they showed those reports being classified and ignored by Council leadership. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Several delegates looked at Chancellor Mevros and the other senior Council members with accusatory eyes. Ambassador Talara of the Feline Dominion was the first to break the silence. Her ears were flat against her head as she admitted the truth. 200 years ago, the Council's predecessors had made a decision. They found evidence of an existential threat that they could not understand or fight. Revealing this threat would have caused panic and potentially destabilized the entire galactic civilization, so they created the Forbidden Sector. They made it taboo. They hoped the problem would never arrive in their lifetimes. Carter pressed her advantage. She pointed out that hope was not a strategy. Hiding from the truth did not make it disappear. Humanity had faced extinction many times on their own world. They knew what happened when people buried their heads in the sand and pretended problems did not exist. They also knew what happened when people united against a common threat. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times through war and environmental disaster, but they had always survived by working together when it truly mattered. Vornis pulsed an angry red color. He challenged Carter by asking what humanity could possibly understand that the Council did not. Humans had only known about this threat for a few days. The older species had been studying the predecessors for millennia. Carter responded that study and action were different things. The Council had studied and hidden and feared. Humanity had acted. They had broken the treaty specifically because they suspected the Council was hiding something important. Dr. Henry Cole stepped forward to support Carter. He explained that the predecessor station contained gifts meant for whoever found it. Weapons technology that could fight the Devourers. Shield generators that could protect entire planets. Power systems that could sustain a war economy for centuries. The predecessors had left these things deliberately. They had built the station as a gift to the species that would come after them, and the Council had been keeping it locked away out of fear. Ambassador Silthra hissed that fear was wisdom when facing the unknown. Carter shot back that fear was cowardice when facing the inevitable. The predecessor calculations showed the Devourers would return within a century. There was no more time for politics or pride or territorial disputes. Every species needed to decide whether they wanted to survive or whether they wanted to maintain the old power structures. Chancellor Mevros asked what humanity proposed. This was the moment Carter had been preparing for. She took a deep breath and laid out Earth's proposal. Captain Green had brought back the access codes to the predecessor station. Humanity was willing to share those codes with every species, freely, no conditions, no strings attached. Everyone would get equal access to the knowledge and technology. But in exchange, Earth wanted a new treaty. The chamber went silent as delegates waited to hear what Earth would demand. Carter explained that Earth wanted a mutual defense pact. Every spacefaring species would contribute resources and personnel to a unified fleet. They would share technology and tactics and training. They would prepare together. Because the alternative was dying separately. The Devourers would not negotiate. They would not show mercy to some species while destroying others. They would consume everything. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some species saw the wisdom in Carter's words. The Luminar Collective's representative Venice pulsed a thoughtful blue color. The feline dominion's Talara nodded slowly. Ambassador Kelthros of the Vryn Commonwealth stood and formally announced his species would join the alliance. But others were not convinced. The Archon Collective, led by Chancellor Mevros, argued for extreme caution. The reptilian sovereignty went further. Ambassador Silthra declared the entire situation was a human conspiracy designed to gain power over other species. Carter had expected resistance. She calmly addressed each concern. To those who feared human domination, she pointed out that Earth was offering equal access to everything. Humans would have no special privileges in the alliance. To those who doubted the threat was real, she presented more data from the predecessor archives. Battle reports describing the Devourers in horrifying detail, star charts showing systems that had been consumed, population records showing trillions of predecessors who had died fighting. The debate continued for hours. Delegates argued back and forth about trust and fear and survival. Some wanted more time to study the data. Others wanted to send their own expeditions to verify the predecessor station existed. A few suggested that even if the threat was real, they still had decades to prepare. Why rush into an alliance now? Carter listened to all the arguments, then responded with a simple truth. The predecessors had been far more advanced than any current species. They had technology that seemed like magic. They had thousands of years of experience fighting the Devourers, and they had still barely survived. Modern species were primitives by comparison. If they waited too long to prepare, they would not get a second chance. She reminded the council that the predecessors had sacrificed their entire civilization to buy time. They had led the Devourers away on purpose, knowing they would probably never return home. They had done this for species they would never meet. For civilizations that did not even exist yet. The least the current species could do was honor that sacrifice by actually preparing for the threat, instead of arguing about politics. Ambassador Talara stood and addressed the chamber. She spoke of how the feline dominion had nearly destroyed itself in civil wars centuries ago. Only by uniting their scattered clans had they survived to reach the stars. She understood what humanity was proposing because her people had already lived through it. Unity was painful. It required setting aside pride and old grudges, but it was the only path to survival when facing extinction. Over the following weeks, the galaxy slowly split into two camps, those who believed the threat and joined the alliance, and those who remained skeptical or opposed. The Archon Collective under Chancellor Mevros argued that humanity was moving too fast. They wanted years of careful study before committing to any alliance. The reptilian sovereignty refused to participate at all. Ambassador Silthra insisted the whole situation was manufactured to give humans power over galactic affairs, but more species sided with Earth than against it. The Vryn Commonwealth was the first to formally join, contributing their extensive naval forces. The Luminar Collective offered their advanced sensor technology and scientific expertise. The Feline Dominion committed their fighter pilots who were renowned as the best in the galaxy. Even smaller species, those who usually stayed neutral in galactic politics, pledged what ships and resources they could spare. Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Valiant when Ambassador Kelthros came aboard for a secret meeting. The Vryn diplomat had requested privacy away from the council's surveillance. Hayes welcomed him to the ship's conference room and offered refreshments suitable for Kelthros's amphibian biology. The ambassador waved away the formalities and got straight to the point. Kelthros explained that his government did not officially support Earth's position yet. Political pressure from the Archon Collective made public support difficult. But privately, he and many other Vryn leaders believed humanity was right. He had done what he should have done years ago. He investigated the Council archives himself. The evidence of the cover-up was extensive once you knew where to look. Survey missions that never returned. Energy signatures that matched nothing in known space. Radio transmissions in languages that belonged to no living species. The Council had always known something was out there. They simply chose not to look too closely. Hayes acknowledged that fear and denial were powerful forces. Humans understood them well. Earth's history was full of examples where people ignored obvious threats until it was too late. Climate change, nuclear weapons, pandemics. Every time humanity had waited until the crisis was undeniable before acting. Sometimes they barely survived their own stubbornness. Kelthros leaned forward and made his offer. The Vryn Commonwealth was prepared to join the alliance quietly at first. They would contribute ships and personnel to the unified fleet. In return, they requested full access to the predecessor station and human assistance upgrading their defensive systems. Hayes agreed immediately. He made it clear that Earth was not looking to dominate the alliance. Humans just wanted everyone to survive what was coming. The predecessor station was officially designated Bastion 1 and became the center of an unprecedented scientific effort. Ships from a dozen species gathered around the ancient structure. Engineering teams worked in shifts around the clock. Scientists from cultures that had been rivals for centuries now shared laboratory space. The barriers of language and biology were overcome through determination and translation technology. Lieutenant Sarah Crawford led the human engineering contingent at Bastion 1. She had served as chief engineer on the Horizon Dawn and knew the station better than almost anyone. Now she commanded a team of 200 engineers from 8 different species. They were focused on understanding and replicating the predecessor power systems. The quantum reactor at the station's core generated more energy than all of Earth's fusion plants combined, and it was only running at 17% capacity. Her colleague Venice from the Luminar Collective worked alongside her, the crystalline being pulsed with excitement as they studied the reactor's design. The predecessors had achieved a level of engineering that bordered on impossible. They manipulated matter at the quantum level with casual precision. They harnessed forces that modern science barely understood. Even with detailed instructions, it would take years to replicate their work. General Peter Kane oversaw the military integration project. His job was to combine forces from dozens of species into a unified command structure. It was like trying to organize chaos. Every species had different tactical doctrines, different command hierarchies, different ideas about discipline and strategy. Human ships used aggressive wolfpack tactics. Feline fighters relied on speed and precision strikes. Vryn vessels preferred defensive formations and overwhelming firepower. Somehow Kane had to make all these different approaches work together. He visited Bastion 1 regularly to check on progress. During one visit, he asked Sarah how long until they could replicate the predecessor reactors. She admitted it might take decades. The science was actually straightforward enough, but the engineering challenges were immense. They needed manufacturing processes that could manipulate individual atoms. They needed materials that did not exist naturally. They needed to solve 1,000 technical problems that modern industry was not equipped to handle. Kane expressed concern that they might not have decades. Intelligence reports suggested the Archon Collective was considering military action to shut down the Alliance project. Chancellor Mevros viewed the unified fleet as a threat to the existing power structure. If the Alliance succeeded, it would make the old Council irrelevant. Some species preferred the familiar corruption of Council politics to the uncertainty of true cooperation. Venice surprised everyone by speaking with unusual steel in his voice. He stated that the Luminar Collective had positioned defensive platforms around Bastion 1. His people had not survived 3 extinction events on their homeworld by backing down from threats. If the Archons wanted to attack, they would find the station well defended. Kane smiled at the crystalline being's fierce determination. He noted that humans were not the only stubborn species in the galaxy. Back on Earth, Captain Jacob Green received an unexpected visitor. Admiral Carter appeared at his apartment in New Seattle. She was out of uniform and looked exhausted. Green invited her in and offered coffee, which she accepted gratefully. Carter explained she needed to speak with him away from official channels. Several council species were demanding Green's arrest for breaking the treaty. They threatened to withdraw from the alliance if Earth did not hand him over. Green asked what Earth's response had been. Carter smiled tiredly and said Earth told them to go to hell. But the situation was causing problems. The alliance needed unity, not division. Some of Carter's colleagues suggested Green might need to make a sacrifice for the greater good. He could surrender himself to face trial, or he could disappear, take a new identity, and go somewhere the council could not reach him. Green considered this, then proposed a different option. He could lead exploration teams deeper into the forbidden sector. The predecessors had left more than one station out there. Long-range scans had detected at least 6 other facilities. Someone needed to investigate them, and it might as well be the crew that started everything. Carter studied him carefully. She pointed out that exploring deeper into forbidden space was dangerous. They had no idea what else might be waiting out there. Green responded that the predecessors had not known either. But they went anyway, and they left behind maps and coordinates. Someone needed to follow those maps. His crew was already experienced with predecessor technology. They knew what to look for. And frankly, Green was tired of politics. He was an explorer, not a politician. Let him do what he did best. Carter thought about it, then agreed. She would arrange for the Horizon Dawn to be resupplied and upgraded with the latest Alliance technology. Green's mission would be classified. Officially, he would be listed as taking an extended leave. Unofficially, he would be gathering intelligence that could save the galaxy. She made him promise to check in regularly and not take unnecessary risks. 2 years passed and the galaxy transformed in ways no one had thought possible. The unified fleet, designated as the Galactic Defense Initiative, now numbered over 15,000 ships from 32 different species. They trained together in joint exercises that would have been unthinkable before. Human crews learned to coordinate with feline pilots. Frin captains shared tactical data with Luminar scientists. Species that had been rivals for centuries now trusted each other with their lives. Admiral Helen Carter commanded Unity Station, the massive fortress that served as headquarters for the entire operation. The station had been built from scratch using both modern technology and principles learned from studying Bastion 1. It orbited a neutral star system chosen specifically because no single species claimed it. Around Carter, humans worked alongside dozens of alien species. The old divisions had not disappeared completely, but they had faded. Common purpose had proven stronger than old prejudices. Commander Lisa Patterson had transferred to Unity Station 6 months earlier. She now managed communications for the entire defense initiative. When an emergency transmission came through from Captain Green's expedition, she immediately routed it to Admiral Carter. The signal quality was poor. Green's ship was at the very edge of explored space, but his message was clear enough. Carter watched Green's face appear on the view screen. He looked older than she remembered. 2 years of exploration in dangerous territory had weathered him. Warning lights flashed on his bridge behind him. Whatever he had found, it was not good news. Green wasted no time on pleasantries. He reported they had found the source of the cycle. Carter asked what he meant. Green explained that at the very edge of the forbidden sector, there was a point where space became wrong. His scientists had detected a massive gravitational anomaly forming. According to the predecessor data they had been analyzing, it was a bridge, a corridor between their galaxy and somewhere else, somewhere outside normal space. Carter felt her blood run cold. She asked how long until the bridge opened. Green estimated 6 months, maybe less. The formation process was accelerating. He paused and his expression grew even more grim. They had seen ships on the other side. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. The Devourers were gathering. They were waiting for the bridge to stabilize so they could cross over. Carter gripped the edge of her console. The threat was no longer theoretical. It was not some distant future problem. It was happening now. She ordered Green to return to Unity Station immediately. They needed him and his data. Green confirmed he was already on course back. But he had more to report. His expedition had found another predecessor station near the anomaly. This one was different from Bastion 1. This one was still occupied. Carter asked by whom. Green's answer shocked her. Predecessors, or at least their descendants. They had been guarding the edge of the galaxy for 50,000 years. Waiting for someone to come. Waiting to pass on their final message. Carter asked what the message was. Green explained that the enemy was called the Devourers. They moved from galaxy to galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The predecessors had not fallen to internal war or civil collapse. They had left the galaxy deliberately. They led the Devourers away to buy time for whatever species evolved after them. But the Devourers were patient. They fed on other galaxies. They grew stronger. And they always returned to check on the places they had harvested before. Carter asked the question everyone feared. How did anyone fight such an enemy? Green said that according to the surviving predecessors, you did not fight them conventionally. The Devourers were not just a species or an empire. They existed partially outside normal space. They drew power from dimensions that made no sense to three-dimensional beings. But the predecessors had learned to hurt them. They had built weapons that could damage the Devourer ships, weapons that disrupted the enemy's connection to their home dimension. The transmission showed Green holding up a data module. He had the blueprints. The predecessors who had guarded the edge of the galaxy for 50 millennia wanted the current species to finish what was started. They had been alone for so long, holding the line against impossible odds. Now it was time to pass the burden to fresh hands. Green's ship would reach Unity Station in 3 days. Then they could begin building the weapons they needed. The transmission ended and Carter stood in silence for a moment. Around her, the command center had gone quiet as crew members processed what they had heard. She activated the station-wide communications. Every person on Unity Station needed to hear this. Every ship in the fleet needed to know. She took a deep breath and began speaking. She told them the threat was real, and it was coming in 6 months. They would face an enemy that had destroyed a civilization far more advanced than theirs. An enemy that had consumed entire galaxies. But she also told them about the weapons, about the predecessor descendants who had held the line for 50,000 years, about how those ancient guardians believed the current species had a chance to win. Carter reminded everyone that they had something the predecessors did not have when they first fought this war. They had warning. They had preparation time. And they had each other. Every species in the Alliance had chosen to stand together. They came from cultures that had been enemies. They had set aside centuries of conflict. They did this because they understood that alone they would fall. Together they had a chance. She acknowledged that the odds were not good. She would not pretend otherwise. Many of them would not survive the coming war, but they would make the Devourers pay for every inch of space they took. They would show these ancient horrors that the galaxy was not theirs for the taking. The predecessors had sacrificed everything to give them this chance. The least they could do was fight with everything they had. Her speech was broadcast to every ship in the fleet, to bases on dozens of worlds, to colonies scattered across hundreds of light years. Beings of 100 different species heard her words and felt something shift inside them. Fear remained, but it was joined by determination. They had been given warning. They had been given weapons. Now they just needed the courage to use both. Captain Jacob Green stood at the viewport of the Horizon Dawn and watched the stars streak past. His crew was exhausted. His ship showed damage from 2 years of hard exploration. But they had done something impossible. They had found the truth. They had united a divided galaxy. They had given civilization a fighting chance. Dr. Henry Cole entered and told Green about something he had discovered in the latest predecessor data. The ancient species had not just left weapons and warnings. They had left a test. Everything that happened had been predicted in predecessor projections. The treaty, the Council's secrecy, humanity breaking the barrier. It was all foreseen. The predecessors knew that whoever came after them would need to overcome division before they could face the Devourers. Technology alone would not save anyone. The galaxy needed to learn cooperation first. Green asked if that meant the predecessors wanted someone to break the treaty. Cole said they knew someone would eventually, and that the response would determine if the galaxy was ready. Green turned from the window and asked if they were ready. Cole smiled slightly and said they were about to find out. The Horizon Dawn raced toward Unity Station carrying knowledge that would forge weapons for the coming war. Behind them at the edge of the galaxy, the anomaly pulsed with dark energy. On the other side, patient and hungry, the Devourers waited. They had fed on 100 galaxies across deep time. They had never been stopped. Never been turned back. This galaxy would be like all the others, easy prey, or so they thought. But this time something was different. This time the prey had teeth. This time the galaxy stood united. Humanity had broken the treaty and in doing so had saved everyone. The panic that gripped the council when they learned of the breach had transformed into something far more powerful. Determination, purpose, unity. The war for survival was about to begin, and the Devourers were going to learn that this galaxy would not go quietly into the dark.